morning, Joe. Thank you for joining me today.
Lana, thank you so much for asking me to join.
Yes, so we have Joe Rosen, and would you like to describe your role with the Parkinson's Resource Organization for our listeners?
Thank you so much. So, 31 years ago, I was in need of information and support, and I couldn't find it because it was not available for adult children of people with Parkinson's or for spousal caregivers of people with Parkinson's. So I decided that I would create that forum. And actually, I made a deal with God. If she would teach me everything I needed to know about Parkinson's for the betterment of my husband and my mother, I would share it with the world. And Parkinson's Resource Organization is the vehicle that we use to share it with the world.
Wow, so it's touched your life in multiple ways then, it sounds like.
It did. And I'm so grateful because it has been not only a wonderful learning experience, but it's been super rewarding because of the we've helped thousands of people today that we would never have known we could have such a huge outreach, number one. And number two, I think, we can throw numbers at something like there are 10 million people with Parkinson's, but until you start helping the multitudes of them, those numbers don't have the same meaning as the reality of it. And so we know we're just helping thousands of people right now around the world. And it's very heartwarming in the sense of being able to help, but it's also very disconcerting and concerning because Parkinson's is growing so rapidly. It's really considered in many eyes and in many viewpoints as its own pandemic right now.
Wow, and April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. How would you describe Parkinson's to someone unfamiliar with the disease?
I think I would describe it by saying Parkinson's is a movement disorder, and that then is everything in our bodies that moves, starting with the head. Our brain moves all the time, but it particularly moves, for instance, when we sneeze. Then we get into our eyes. Our eyes move, and they move back and forth to create balance and show us where we are in space. So if that's impacted, the saccading of the eyes might be impacted. We get into the throat and the muscles and the nerves that are affected here. And swallowing can be an issue in Parkinson's. We go down and we get into the other organs, the lungs, the heart, etc. And all of those are impacted. The movement is impacted. So I would describe Parkinson's as a movement disorder that over time starts impairing or inhibiting movement within the entire body.
Well, thank you, because as you mentioned, this affects so many people, and I'm sure there are people being diagnosed every single day.
And if interestingly enough that you say that, because in the United States, it's about 1 in every 60. And I just heard from someone in Australia that says it's 1 in every 10. And so this is huge amount of people that are being affected. But I would also say that at least 50% of the people diagnosed with it may have an incorrect diagnosis.
Wow. So if someone you knew or a loved one recently received a diagnosis for Parkinson's, what advice or guidance would you give someone who was just beginning this journey?
The first thing I think I would say to them, or advice I would give to them, is to breathe. Just relax and breathe, and understand that you heard some words probably for the first time in your life that you don't know anything about, and your doctor may or may not have told you anything about it either. They may say something like you have an early stage, or you have a small case, or something like that. But it is something that needs to be researched, needs to be learned, needs to be investigated. And so someone newly diagnosed, I would suggest talk to a professional who understands Parkinson's, and probably as importantly, get involved with support groups. that discuss and talk about Parkinson's disease. When I say explore and investigate, I'm not necessarily talking about getting on Google and just finding everything you can about Parkinson's. It may be very, very frightening. And I'm not suggesting either that you get into the Facebook groups that are talking about Parkinson's from early stage, but most of the time they're talking about advanced Parkinson's. Because there are stages in the development of Parkinson's. So we would want someone who's newly diagnosed to understand A, it's not the end of life. B, it's a new job, taking care of oneself. And there are things that you can start addressing in your life if you haven't already done so, that can help get you through the journey of the disease process in a very, at least, comfortable way. We're always looking for quality of life, no matter what we have, and even if it's a life without a disease process. But in Parkinson's, we're looking for quality of life. And so breathe would be the first thing, and get to the acceptance part of having this disease as fast as you can. So we know that there's an acronym, or many people know the acronym called DABDA, and it's DABDA, and so it's denial. DA is anger. Then there's bartering. Oh God, please, if you take this away from me, I promise to be a good person. And then there's depression, and then there's acceptance. And so as fast as you can get to that fifth stage and accept the fact that you have something, then you can work with it so much better. So I like to say to people, you could have cancer, you could have cardiac issues, you could have any number of other things, but you were chosen to have Parkinson's. So let's take that choice and let's work with it to the greatest extent possible.
That's excellent advice that could be applied to anything, really. Wow. And I'm sure in your daily dealings, you come across new people that perhaps are in an advanced stage or have been dealing with Parkinson's for a long time. And let's say they are in that acceptance mode. Do you have any different advice that you would give to someone further along in their journey with this disease?
Yes and no. So I'll kind of take this from the beginning on too. So someone newly diagnosed, we would suggest that they start exercising, whether they like to or not. Exercise is really the best medicine. And then we would go to learning how to meditate and de-stress. We would talk about eating healthy, because that would be critically important as well. And if we had a chance to talk to people before they were diagnosed, we would talk to them about getting long-term care insurance, because during the process of this, they're going to need support and help from companies like Cambrian Homecare or Homecare in the Long Beach area that we know about so well. They cover other areas too, and we can get into that later. But so there are systems that are set up, but they cost money. So we would want to know in the early time if we can prepare financially for this, as well as we want to prepare family-wise for this. And so as they're advancing, we want them to have their ducks in a row in order. And then we want them to know that there are resources and support systems that are available to them, and to be able to reach out. Receiving, is so very difficult for most people, that to receive this support and these resources is sometimes difficult to handle. But it becomes, in the Parkinson's world at least, it becomes necessary, because one person alone cannot take care of a person with Parkinson's all the way through their life. It takes a village, and we have one of those.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, this is your life's work as president and founder of Parkinson's Resource Organization. You've put so many things together, so many resources. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about the Parkinson's Resource Organization?
Oh, and thank you so much for asking, because we think that we have something so important for the community. So we are an organization that is an emotional and educational organization. Our focus is not research, but we research everything that we do, and we research a lot. We're always trying to stay in front of what's happening in the Parkinson's world. So we are an organization that through education, we have a monthly newsletter that has really current and very important articles on the disease, on potential cures of the disease, on support systems that are available for the disease, and working with the families. And that's our monthly newsletter. That monthly newsletter is sent on a physical basis, but it's also very much so on our website, which is essentially a blog of information. Our website is another educational tool, and it is filled with wonderful, robust information, um, current and important information, and even some of the old Bubblemeisters, as I would call them at my age, the old things that worked a long time ago and they still work. And so we report that on the website. We also on the website have something that is unique and incredibly magnificent and important for the Parkinson's community. It's called the Wellness Village. And the Wellness Village is a virtual, meaning it's on the website. It's a vetted, meaning we make sure that anybody that is in the Wellness Village is licensed, is appropriate for the community, and is prepared and ready to help our constituents, our community. So it's virtual vetted, it's video driven. Every page of a professional on the website has a video, so someone knows why they would go to that company or that person to employ them in whatever their need is. And so it's virtual, vetted, video driven, and it's a resource directory. So right now we are the only Parkinson's organization in the world that has this kind of a directory. And it becomes partly educational, but also part of the emotional support. We then have we have regular, some are monthly, some are weekly support group meetings. These are also virtual since COVID-19. And these support groups, so we have support groups specifically for partners in care. We have support groups that we call roundtables for the people with Parkinson's and their family members, and even the professionals. Many of them in the Wellness Village even come to these meetings. We have village meetings where the wellness villagers that are in the Wellness Village directory that we just talked about come to share what they can do for the community, either they themselves or someone similar to them, what they can do for the community. And then we're now beginning to do specialty support groups. We right now have a mindfulness support group, meets once a month. It's led by a medical hypnotherapist. And so the subjects that so far have been covered is sleep, anxiety, and there's actually one of them, those meetings going on today, and I don't know what the subject matter is, but it's always very concise, and it is something that every participant has an opportunity to learn something special for themselves, by themselves, and along with others. We have another group that we will be starting soon called the Grief Group, and it's not grief about death. This is a grief group about losses. As someone goes through Parkinson's, whether they be a caregiver or a person with it, they are all experiencing losses every day. The loss of movement, the loss of ability to do something for the person with Parkinson's. And then for the caregiver, it's the loss of that buddy, that person that they loved and for so long, and the changes that are going on there, or the loss of their rainbow that they thought they would have when they got to a certain age in life, and now that might be missing. So we have, and we'll start building some support groups specifically for young people with Parkinson's. Our first group is going to be a group of people who are from 20 years old to 35 years old, because they have issues and concerns very different from those who are 62 and above. And then we'll start a group for also young people with Parkinson's from like 36 to maybe 62, because they have issues. They're raising children, they're trying to work, etc. and how do we get through that. And so we're developing specialty support groups, and so that's the emotional part. We have one-on-one coaching that's available for anyone who wants to talk to a Joe Rosen or someone else on staff who has the credentials to walk them through what they should be thinking about as they're going through this journey. So again, back to education and emotional support. We do it from every angle possible. And we love what we do, but we also get tremendous testimonials from our constituents. So it's a good thing.
I am sure. When you said it takes a village, you weren't kidding. So you built a village.
We built a village. Yes.
Yes. Wow. And so amazing for a nonprofit. And I'm sure there are ways that people could support you if they wanted to volunteer, either volunteer their time or if they had other resources. Can you perhaps describe some of the needs that you have, ongoing needs for potential sponsors, donors, or
Oh,
volunteers?
thank you so much. So yes, sponsorship of any of these programs that we talked about today is absolutely necessary in order to keep them going. So if someone wants to make donations, or they want to even sponsor a page, or maybe they want to sponsor a resource. Give you an example of something. I'm just going to just pull it out of the bag. Maybe they know an acupuncturist, or maybe they know a therapist that they really like working with, and they would like to see that person in the wellness village so that others can find them. They can either let us know who that is, and we can get to them and ask them if they would like to apply to be in the wellness village, or they can sponsor them to be in there. So to be in the wellness village is something that someone pays to be there after they're invited and vetted, and they apply, etc. So but someone could sponsor that. They can sponsor pages in the website. They can sponsor the newsletter. They can sponsor articles in the newsletter. Donations, we love them, whether they be $10 or $10 million. We don't have that yet, but we would.
It's always good to have a goal.
Yes. So donations are really good. We also would like people in their area to think about the outreach that is necessary to help people learn about Parkinson's. So we can do little events, boutique events in an area, a walk, a little fundraising event, a booth at some other type of an event where a table could be set up and our information can be delivered to the community so that people know that we are available. And then, of course, when we have major fundraising events, to participate in that. Yes, there are many ways that someone can volunteer or support financially.
Excellent. Well, you have such an amazing organization. I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there listening that hopefully will pick up the phone or visit that amazing website you've talked about. I certainly hope so.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Let me also say, I'm today that we're if anybody doesn't know Cambrian Homecare, they need to. I just need to say that because these are the kinds of resources that we have in the Wellness Village. And so this is a home care company that was built almost as many years as we are old, and we're now 31. But I've known Rhiannon, who's the owner of Cambrian Homecare, for 20 some odd years. She's a former retired nurse, and she has tremendous compassion and care and she is just her work product and what she does for the community is so critically important to the community. It's also critically important to people like us or organizations like us because we present her to our constituents and we know what she can give to them to help and support. This is a woman who thinks way outside of the box, and maybe that's why I love her so much. But she thinks out of the box in how can she help. She gets involved with the political aspect, if you will, of caregiving and what's important for states and governments to participate in financially and other ways. I think I was so blown away when I learned that she had a caregiver university, and we have sent people to the caregiver university so that they would have a better understanding of how they could care for their loved one. And at the same time as taking care of themselves, because they become a critical part of that equation in the caregiver slash person with Parkinson's equation. The
Right.
caregiver actually becomes at one point in time the most important, because without the caregiver, the person with Parkinson's would be in deep doo-doo. But we
That's right.
depend on companies like Cambrian to fill up those little holes that we can't do, and to create the foundation for wellness for everyone involved.
Well, I'm glad you see Cambrian Homecare as more than just a resource, but also a partner. It's a great relationship.
It really is. And I know how much work they do also to let the community know that we're here for them as well. So yes, thank you. It's a good one.
Absolutely. Well, my last question for you, Joe, is do you have a favorite story about Parkinson's Resource Organization? Perhaps a success story or an example of one of your best days at work that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Oh, there are so many, Lana. I don't even know where to begin. You know, I think when we know that we have set someone up with a particular resource that saves the lives and the breath and the anxieties of dealing with a progressive disease like this, then we know that we have done a very good job walking them through the balance of the system that they need to walk through. Cambrian comes in here as well. But then we have hospice companies that come in. So just even over the weekend, we had one where um, they said Grandpa just took a turn for the worse, and we think that we need to probably call hospice in. Well, we know Cambrian can help in that area too. But so we sent out some names of hospice companies that they could call. And by just giving them the phone number and the name of a hospice company, and then we sent them to the website, to the Wellness Village, to hear the video of how that hospice company could help them and why it would be important that we have somebody who understands Parkinson's. And so that one just happened this weekend. But we work from the homeless all the way to the very rich of people. We go from any race, creed, or color matters not to us, because what's helpful or important to us is to raise them up, to elevate them, to walk through this journey with the greatest quality of life possible.
That's wonderful. You grant grace to so many people. And I'm always going to remember your first bit of advice is to breathe. No matter what we're given in life, you can still take a breath and take a moment. And it's wonderful to know that if something as dramatic as Parkinson's affects you or your loved one, that the Parkinson's Resource Organization is here and it's anywhere. I mean, we may be sitting in Long Beach now, but you said worldwide, the World Wide Web, it's true.
Well, and
Your
we
resources can
just
reach
had
out.
someone that came to us from Denmark, and another caregiver that came to us from the United Kingdom, and we've had people with Parkinson's from Spain, and a caregiver from Ireland, and they come to these support group meetings because today they can. And I would never have thought in my lifetime that I would be so connected to the world as we are today. And it's one of the gratitudes that we have for COVID-19 is that it really allowed us to expand what we're doing for the world, and create a smaller community, but as beneficial as possible to get people through the Parkinson's journey, whether they be the caregiver or the person with Parkinson's, or just not just a family member, and help them do that with the greatest grace. You use that word, the greatest of kindness and goodness and reward, and then afterwards the resilience to get back to life, because all of us come and go one day or the other, and so we need to carry on afterwards. And PRO, Parkinson's Resource Organization, does that too.
Wonderful. Well, Joe Rosen, president and founder of PRO, we are so thankful for your words today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lana. It was my pleasure.
still at